Hello everybody, we are glad to see you on this lesson which is devoted to text animation. Each motion designer sooner or later have a deal with text animation. This could be lower thirds, callouts, titles, and so on. Moreover, text is the part of the project which often can be corrected by client, so it's really important to have a possibility to make edits easy with no animation corrections. After Effects provides a set of instruments for text animation that make process flexible, but you will have to get used to these tools and understand the principle of their work at first. So let's begin. Select the Type tool, click in any place, and type any text. So as you can see, the new text layer was automatically created on timeline. This type of layers is marked with red color and with the icon of letter T by default. There are two panels for text formatting in After Effects: Character and Paragraph. Character contains all font settings such as family, style, size, tracking, and so on. In Paragraph panel, you can set up the look of the whole text block. Here are such settings as text alignment, paragraph, spaces, and others. In general, these two panels are almost the same as Photoshop and Illustrator have. So, after we play around with fonts and set them like we wanted, let's talk about text layer properties. Open the text layer and text, and the first parameter is source text. It responds for text contents, so you can animate what will be written without creating any additional layers. So just create a keyframe on this property. Go to any frame on a timeline and write another word. Toggle hold keyframes were automatically created, so that we animated the text contents. But it is impossible to edit speed graph and use any other types of keyframes, so that's how it works with this property. Using Path Options group, you can place the text along created path. To select the path in this dropdown, first of all you need to create a mask on current text layer. If mask path is closed and it influences the layer visibility, set its working mode to Known. Now our mask path is available in this dropdown. Using reverse path, you can place the text inside or outside your path. To place the letters along path instead of perpendicular to it, just switch the perpendicular to path parameter to off. Using force alignment, we can stretch the text line over the entire path length. And with the help of first and last merging parameters, you can move and animate the text along path. And now we came to the most interesting theme: animation. The principle of creating text animation is fundamentally different from those we get used to see in shape layers or other types of layers. To add animation, click this Animate button, and in this dropdown I listed all text parameters which can be animated. There are included all basic shape transformations, fill and stroke colors, also such text parameters as tracking, line spacing, and others. And if per character 3D is added, you will be able to animate text in 3D. So let's add scale property, for example. Animator 1 has appeared. Here we can set the scale value, and range selector was added as well. This group of settings is pretty similar to those trim path shape modifier has. For example, let's change the scale value to 20, and the whole line became smaller. But if we change the start or end values, you'll notice that only part of the line will be changed. So, by adjusting start and offset parameters, you can set the part of text line to which property changes will be applied. So let's make a start equals 0, end to 100, and offset to 0, so that the whole line is selected. We can animate start or end parameters, but it's better to use offset parameter animation for text, and later you will understand why. Animate the offset from 0 to 100. And change the scale value to 0, so that we get this letter by letter appearance animation. Good. You still have a raw look, because the animation is linear. If you make easy ease on range selector offset parameter, this won't help. You can set up the easings for each letter animation in Advanced Settings group of range selector. Unfortunately, there is no graph editor, but there are these three parameters: smoothness, is high, and is low. Smoothness responds for animation smoothness. If the value is set to 0, the animation will be fast and twitchy, because there is no in-between frames in animation. Ease high is analog of ease out. It makes the beginning of the movement smoother. Change its value to 100 and you'll see that animation is smoothly accelerates. If effect is not visible enough, just stretch the keyframes on offset parameter. Ease low is analog of ease in. It makes the movement smoothly slow down in the end. To make sure, change its value to 100 and ease high to 0. Of course, it is possible to make ease high and ease low at the same time, and that's how you will set the really cool easing. It's better to understand work of these parameters on example of Motion 2 script. So, let's review other advanced settings of Range Selector. The first one is Units. In this drop-down, we can select units which Range Selector will work with. Sometimes it's not comfortable to work with percents, because you can't easily understand what percent value two letters are relatively to the whole line. So if you switch to index, Range Selector parameters will work with symbol or word indexes. It depends on what is selected and based on parameter. I will switch to percent because it's okay for now. So the next parameter is based on. It determines how the animation will happen, letter by letter, or word by word, or maybe you want to make the text appear by lines. So select the word in this drop-down. And as you can see, the word is appearing, but each letter still scaling up separately. That's because each of them has separate anchor point. To make it appear the whole word instead of separate letters, you need to go to More Options, and in Anchor Point Grouping, switch the value in this drop-down from characters to words. Now each word has its own single anchor point. And the next setting is Mode. So here you can select the working mode of Range Selector like in Mask settings. Add means that changes will be made to the part of the line selected with Range Selector parameters. If it is switched to Subtract, it will work vice versa. All that is outside of the Range Selector will be changed. Now let's create text disappearing animation. Set the current working mode to Add, duplicate current animator, open its advanced properties, and set the mode to Subtract. Offset its keyframes, like this. So now we have ingoing and outgoing animations. And the next parameter, I guess one of the hardest for understanding. It is a shape of Range Selector. We have attached a project to the lesson in which you can find the composition with demonstrative animations which explain how each form of Range Selector works. This comp is called Range Selector Shapes. When we animate the offset, Range Selector can be imagined as geometric shape which is moving along text line, and in places it intersects the letters, changes are applied. For example, we have such text animation, and we want the interval between animations be smaller, to make them fly in one by one and form the wave. And let's think how we can do this. Moving closer, these keyframes won't help in this situation, because the Range Selector shape is square by default and this is how it works. But we can fix this by changing Range Selector shape to Ramp Up, so the Range Selector will have the following form. I think that you noticed that this form is 2 times bigger than standard square, so we have to animate offset parameter from -100 to 100 now. So change the first keyframe value to -100. And don't forget to set up ease high and ease low parameters in case to have a much better result. And another cool thing about animators is that several properties can be placed in one animator. To add more properties to animator, just click on this button called Add near animator's name and select the property you want to animate as well. Besides properties, you can add other types of selector to current animator. We will review them on separate example. So we have such text. Let's add scale animator to it. Change scale value. Range selector was added by default. When we work with this type of selector, all changes are happening sequentially. But if we add a weekly selector to it, the changes will happen constantly in randomized order and with chaotic amplitude. But what is even more interesting is how this selector works with standard range selector. By default, its working mode is set to intersect. That means that we can make the letters change in the part of the text line determined by range selector. For example, if we change the end value to 50, changes will be applied only to first part of text line. Weekly selector settings are pretty similar to those Wiggle Transform modifier has. We can set up the amplitude, frequency, correlation, phases, and it has one more parameter, log dimensions, which will save symbol proportions while it's random changes. Now we are going to review the last type of selectors. Delete all current selectors and add expression selector. Its work is fully determined by JavaScript code. Now we will create bouncing animation. For that, set the 0 value to the scale property, open the expression selector and apply the touch to the lesson bounce expression to a mounts parameter. Be careful, this expression is different from one we learned in second lesson. This one is adapted for text. Let's have a detailed look at it. Here we have two already known variables, frequency and decay. But this expression also has two parameters which we didn't map before. Delay. It is a delay between animations of each letter. Endure means duration, is responsible for animation duration. Let's have a look at what this expression did with our animation. Really awesome. And as you can see, we didn't use any keyframes to create this animation, because duration is controlled by value of variable, and this is really cool. Now let's get started with practice and recreate this simple text animation. Take the type tool and write any text. Now draw a rectangular mask on this layer. Invert its working mode and place it a little lower. Add animator for position. And edit its value so that the text is hidden behind the mask. Open range selector properties and animate offset from 0 to 100 approximately in 1 second. Now we have this letter by letter appearance animation. Go to Advanced tab and change the shape of selector to ramp up. But don't forget that offset must be animated now from -100 to 100 if you have ramp up shape selected. So change the value on first frame to -100. Set the easing using ease high and ease low parameters. Set the ease high to 10% to make a movement slightly accelerate in the beginning, and ease low to 100 to make it slow down as smoothly as possible. Now let's make text coming in by word. For that, change the based on parameter to word. Cool. And now let's create outgoing animation. For that, duplicate our animator, go to its settings, range selector, and change the form of selector to ramp down. And offset the keyframes. And watch the result. That's it. Now let's make outgoing animation letter by letter. For that, change the based on parameter to characters. And watch what we've got. Pretty good, but we can make an outgoing animation a little faster. The first animation is ready. The next example is going to be this animation of tracking and blur properties. Here we'll be reviewing the way of creating animation without range selector animation. Everything will be done inside one text animator. I have this text prepared, and now add the animator for tracking property. Now we can control character spacing. Also, let's add animator for blur property, so that we can also control blurriness. Cool. Let's animate tracking amount and go to 1 second and 20 frames. Change the tracking value to 50 and make a keyframe. move to the first frame and increase streaking value to something like that. Now set the easing for this animation. Select the keyframes, go to Graph Editor and make the graph of following form. A little bit smoother. And that's it. Let's animate the blurriness. Go to the last frame of the animation and set the keyframe on blur property. And on the first frame, increase the blurriness. Now we can scale animation. For this, add to this animator scale property as well. But when we change its value, each letter will be scaled separately. But I want to scale the whole word. For this, go to More Options parameter and change anchor point grouping to word. Using group and alignment, move the anchor point upward to the vertical center of word. It is done. Now if we change the scale property, it will influence the whole word. Let's animate scale. Move to 3 seconds and make a keyframe. Go to the first frame and increase the scale to something like that. Now let's increase blur parameter to make our letter less visible. And set the easing for scale parameter. Make the animation a little faster in the beginning, so just the breath, like this. And that's it, you can make trailers now. And the next example we are going to do is this glitchy text. It was created with Vue animators. So first of all, add the animator for character offset. And if we change this parameter, you will see that the letters are now randomly changed. To make this random animation be constant, add the wiggly selector to current animator. Now let's animate offset parameter in range selector from 0 to 100. So now our text is appearing from random symbols. And let's increase the frequency in wiggly selector to 5. And rename our animator to make everything clear. So now add new animator for opacity property to make the letters appear from nothing. Change the opacity value to 0. Make the offset parameter animation the same as in character offset animator. Just copy and paste it if you want. So I want this decoding effect happen a little bit longer. So for that, just select the keyframes of character offset animator and offset them a little bit this way. Cool. Let's add some random changes to scale property as well. Also rename the animator to opacity. And the random scale changes will be made from character offset animator, so just duplicate it. And place it above everything. Delete character offset property and add scale property. Increase the scale this way. And as you can see, the letters are increasing relatively to their anchor point, which is on their bottom now. Let's adjust the anchor point position. For that, go to More Options and place it to the right place using group alignment. And that's it. Cool. You can play around with offsets of the range selector's keyframes to have more interesting result. Now let's stretch our letters vertically a little bit more. For that, just adjust the second scale parameter. I think it looks nice. And that's what we wanted. And the next interesting thing about text animation is what if you want to use created text animation for other layer and moreover in other projects? Everything is pretty simple, you can save it as preset. For that, select all created animators and go to Animation, Save Animation Preset, and save it to the proposed directory. Restart After Effects, and after that you can apply your preset to any text layer. And that's pretty cool. The text animators can seem not comfortable enough in the beginning, but then after you get used to its tools, you won't have a problem if your client decides to change something in text. So let's practice with text in your homework. So your task is to recreate the following text animations. So good luck guys, and see you on the next lesson!